flip it.
2.
All right.
So yeah, if anything, like continue like we were speaking with the man's not hot. I said he's too hot.
Yeah.
The man's not hot affecting drill rap in the UK.
It is so warped how Americans viewed UK drill music to the point where the ironic thing is I think it made the opening for New York drill to pop.
You just connected the dots! Oh my god!
Because everybody took the UK stuff and thought it was silly.
I didn't think of that.
It cycled back into the United States, and then people started to take it, like, understand New York drill and accept that. But then when I started listening, oh my gosh, listening to that podcast, now my brain's gone. But when I started listening to UK podcasts that were talking about hip hop, like, they have like a whole alternate history of how they view hip hop and like hip hop into grime, into what became drill.
Yeah.
And like they have like people like kind of talk about like a Skepta and stuff like that, whereas like they have their own versions of Nas in there, like oh, like this is the UK, like this is the UK equivalent of like what Nas is to you guys, and I'm like, that's nuts. And like had I not done a deep dive into that, I would have just thought
consumed it. I would have thought Fabio, bro.
Yep,
just no.
So and that's the thing. There's kids now that think drill started in New York.
I know.
It just did it.
Like,
or Chicago, like, oh yeah, Chicago's like,
no, like you said, they've been doing that out there in the UK.
It's like, we did hip hop, it goes there, turns into grime, and comes back to us.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't learn that if you don't listen to people outside of like that United States bubble.
Man. So that's what I said, we gonna learn about music today. God damn.
But yeah, so getting a worldly view earlier, just it preps you so much for just not being in a bubble and having a way of understanding other people, like even if like you haven't necessarily gone to that country.
At least how they consume stuff, or what they consumed. You might not even know why they did it, but you at least literally know where and what it was. So we were talking off camera for like 5 seconds about marketing a project. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people. I'll probably clip this and just make this its own segment part, just because people. Artists have a hard time, managing that responsibility. So the way I want to frame the question is, if there was any way that someone could support your music in the effort of helping you get your marketing thing and your promotional strategy, like what can be helpful to supporting your music and making that initiative possible right now?
In particular, I would say the best way to support our music for me is 2 things. And honestly, it's the same thing that I kind of did do with Big Ups Tuesday. Like I used to encourage people all the time, like shout out someone that you think is dope and should be on Big Ups Tuesday, and then also like if you do that, like I'll shout you out type situation.
Right.
My biggest thing is that I think Branch Station's overarching goal is to push live music to be the next phase of hip hop, because at some point I do think trap
make it a standard.
Like if we're like I want it to be where it's like, oh, it's the norm to have some type of live element inside your music. So for me, if you are able to watch our vlogs, like our jam session vlogs, where it's really letting you see how we create, you're literally seeing a freestyle session that later turns into a song, and you kind of like see this process. If you like that stuff, one, share it with other artists.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing. Like I kind of,
because that's where your target is to who you want to encourage is other artists.
Yeah, and I think the idea of Branch Station, like the best way to kind of put it, not in a box, but like the way I like to phrase it, like I would like for our group to be a musician's favorite band. So like even if you're a piano player who isn't too into hip hop, you probably like Branch Station. So like that's my biggest thing, because also the thing is like,
man, that's a bridge, bro. You thinking on another level.
Yeah,
most people are not gonna see the demo of that right there.
Because
that was powerful.
A lot of people they kind of wanna just push to people who are listeners, but it's like, yeah, that's how you get like the master of people, because not everyone's a musical artist. Yeah, but like
there's a lot of musical artists are people who are very, like you said, invested in the music.
So so like if you know someone who's a piano player or a didgeridoo player, I don't care.
Right.
Like show them like, hey, there's people creating bands that are making contemporary music and like not abandoning everything and saying, oh, we'll just get a producer to make it.
Yeah.
Because I think the sad thing that I think has happened with just the modernization and integration of technology is like, I feel like we've gone from having technology be a tool being used in creating music as to being
the crutch or dependence.
Yeah, to being the music creator. Like, so for me, like, and I don't like to, this is where it gets like a little bit deeper. Like, I kind of talk to like my band all the time about like this idea of like a human revolution type thing, where it's like, in the mass sense of how the world's going, automation is going to become king.
Yep.
But we have to make sure we don't lose our humanity in that.
Right, yeah.
And that's in all facets. Like my stepdad, he's a truck driver, and he's like, yeah, I know, 2040, they're probably going to just have
fucking
self-driving trucks. And I'm like, so what I see with music is like, you see these softwares coming out now. It's like, oh, this software will master a song for you. And the next thing's going to be, oh, this software will mix a song for you. Next thing is going to be, this software will make the song for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, are you an artist now? Like, what are we doing? Like,
that was such a real
so, like, and we have to kind of start early, and this is why like, I always encourage, like, if you meet, even if you're a rapper, and you meet a guitar player, keep in contact with them. Even if they're not a producer guitar player, like, they're not a beat maker.
They're not right. They're not a beat maker. Right. Yeah, I get it.
Get in contact with them, because I'm telling you, especially when we talk about labels and stuff like that nature, they'll jump at the opportunity to be able to make songs that people like without any human involvement.
Yeah.
Like if you can make
something catchy, something massively adopted, and it requires no production. And
there's no more. Oh, I gotta make sure that the artist is good and like. Nah, like, so, and that's the thing, they're tuning our ears to that.
Yeah.
To where it's like, okay, here's these 2-minute chunks, we can use a chord pack, throws it in there,
right.
And then we have like the pre-made, preloaded effects, and it's like, alright, bet. Because all that means is that if you keep making beats that way, and it's not that human intuition to it, a robot can do it.
Yep.
And they're gonna have the robot do it, and then it's gonna be like, okay, if you're on Sony, you don't need to get producer budgets anymore, so maybe you still hire writers, but also writers. They got robots that can write lyrics.
Right, yeah, like they're coming for that too.
So yeah, it's like.
So let me ask this question, because I like to catch them in segues.
Gotcha.
We have a question on this segment that I ask every time, because in our promotional statement, or our mission statement for Newports and News, we talk about being a consistent and genuine environment for undervalued or an underrated artists. Did I say undervalued?
Undervalued and underrated.
Okay,
sometimes go hand in hand.
Right. So, if you know you were gonna leave the earth now, and you had to check a box that said, "I am undervalued" or "I am underrated," which one would you check? Which one would you be willing to take to the grave? Because they both suck.
Here's what I'll ask you: is it the one that I would accept, or the one
would you accept? Right.
Oh.
They both suck, so it's not. You know.
They do and don't. So, well, they do. They both suck. Here, if I had to check and I accepted that that's what's checked, I would much more prefer underrated.
There we go.
And the reason why is because I've had conversations with my band in Branch Station about how, like, because this is like a band that's like a collective more so than like a strictly like, oh, these are the only members in here. I've toyed around with the idea. It's like this might be the iteration that happens to set up the next generation to take that mantle and then actually explode it.
Yeah.
So like,
what you're saying, pioneer.
Yeah, so like, for instance, and I always joke with like my homie Sage, his real name is James, I'll be like, at some point James Jr. is going to take over and be like the lead rapper on Burn Station, that'll be dope. Or something like that. So if I'm underrated and not appreciated, but people are able to see the value in like, oh, he kind of made
that up for them.
Yeah, he made live music more palatable to an audience so that other artists
and now it became a norm.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're a visionary. So, man. I like you, man.
Like,
I like you a lot.
Appreciate it. But like, that's the thing, because I think for me the hardest thing that I was like really torn up about initially starting Branch Station was how undervalued musicians are in our current musical
Yeah.
landscape. Like when you see like a rap show happening, you see when they do it like a live event, they have actual live musicians there, but they're in the back and they're in shadow.
Shadowed out.
And it's like, oh, just focus on the baby, just focus on, and it's like, like
that's cringy.
notice,
When you say it,
notice that these individuals, when you add them to a standard
show.
trap beat, and you just put that on top, that's what puts it over the top to where you go see that live show and you're like, yo, Cole is so much better live than he is on record.
Yeah.
And you think it's like, oh, it's just Cole because I just saw Cole. But it's like, no, he had a drummer, he had 2 drummers on there, he had like background singers that aren't on the original. There's all these added musicians to the production that bolster it.
And he wouldn't have wanted to get up there without it either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, not to say that he can't, because it's very
not that he can't, but he prefers and appreciates them being there.
Him by himself and him with all the added musical elements puts it here.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not saucing y'all up no more after this, right? This is a lot more than I thought we were gonna get today. So I'm gonna end with this, right? You know what I mean? You can reiterate anything that you like. We've already told them where we can be found at. We already told them all of that good stuff. So if there's a message you want to leave out with,
I'll say this: if don't be afraid to experiment and fail, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you lost.
Yeah,
like
I had to learn that too.
Like I'll tell you this, like
especially just like as a musician doing the business shit.
Mm-hmm.
You go fuck it.
Because when we do jam sessions, the hardest thing that I kept seeing was like, you'll see hip hop artists who are comfortable with doing their set in their song, but like they won't ever freestyle off the top because they don't want to embarrass themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like I just remember that kind of being the culture, especially when I was in high school. Like everyone did rhythms.
Yeah.
But then when you get,
I was just out 2 nights ago at my open mic, and it was like when the freestyles came out, people ran out the room. It's like that.
Got you. And so I was like that in high school. Like I was very nervous about spinning something entirely off the top. But then once I started working with a live band who, keep it a buck, like a beat, you know, you can loop that for maybe 6 minutes and people won't get tired of it. But a band, they can jam for a half hour, 45 minutes, easy. And you gotta be able to fill that with a rap, of course, or something. And what I've learned is like that ability to be like, okay, I'm gonna not be good at freestyling for a bit, but if I keep doing it, that repetition will make me better. I can't tell you how many Branch Station songs were built initially from freestyles.
Wow.
And if we didn't have that in our arsenal and that like, what I'll say is like creative vulnerability to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
That's key. So if like you're nervous about, oh, I don't necessarily, just do it. Even if you mess up, it just leads to you getting better to the point you make less and less mistakes the more you do it. So that's like my biggest thing is like, go out on a limb creatively. Don't be afraid.
Alright, man, so look, we out of here. It's Eyez, you dig? It's Terrence Harris. And this is another New Person News interview. I don't know what they're called yet. We'll figure it out. But hopefully by the time it's here, I'll have that figured out. So,
but, you know, information still got to you.
Yeah, the info is what's important, so bless her.
Yeah, good work.
Thank you, bro. Hey. So yeah, that's the premise of it. So now I'm hyped, too.